In an international environment composed of sovereign territories, authority is granted within boundaries by a society to its ruling party. This authority is supported by a capacity to exercise power, sometimes through effective policing and a competent judiciary, but frequently authority is supported by force and violence. As there is no higher authority over sovereign states, when disagreements overwhelm diplomatic efforts, the result is a competition of power and violent domination that we call war. A state that wins a war is thereby granted authority, at least temporarily, over a territory that's not within its borders, and subsequently can settle the dispute by establishing new laws or a new government to assume authority within the territory. In other words, violence and the threat to life maintains order between the governed and the government. However, this authority can be challenged from many angles. Authority must be recognized by people and seen as legitimate, but not all people within a society are in agreement about whose authority is or even can be legitimate. Such internal conflicts may result in a struggle for power and authority, which we would call a civil war. Violence, therefore, is a tool available to anyone. Whoever wields power most effectively can assume authority over others within a sovereign border, which itself can be contested as artificial. We can see that violence is a force that shapes relationships between people and states, and can either support or erode the boundaries of the international environment. The present conflict in Iraq is one example where violence is challenging the traditional boundaries of sovereignty. Iraq's current borders were drawn up by the League of Nations and encompass Kurds and Arabs, further divided into Sunni and Shia Muslims. Upon withdrawal of U.S. troops in Iraq, many predicted that a civil war was inevitable. One militant group, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or ISIS, has generated a wave of violence throughout the north. ISIS isn't simply bent on wreaking havoc in Iraq. The organization is actually concerned with state building in both Iraq and Syria, and has started providing many social services to the Sunni populations under their control. Many welcome the consumer protection initiatives, vaccinations, and postal services provided by ISIS. However, such activity erodes state authority as it replaces typical state functions. The fact that violent groups fight so hard to establish their own states shows how important the concept of the autonomous state actor continues to be on the international stage. It also shows how effective violence can be, as the democratic alternative of choosing leaders is difficult to implement. Groups such as ISIS in Iraq and the Taliban in Afghanistan continually use violent means in pursuit of running their own states. ISIS, however, is a transnational movement that aims to redefine borders to encompass not just one state, but a specific population. Though Syria is embroiled in its own civil war, it sees ISIS as a fundamental threat and has bombed locations within Iraqi borders. Other states have contributed to the defense of Iraq as well, including U.S. advisors and Iranian resources. It cannot be doubted that ISIS is a strong transnational challenger to Iraq, as it continues to expand its territory and replace all traces of the Iraqi state apparatus. As seen in Iraq, the use of violence can alter the international landscape in various ways. State actors can fight for domination over one another, while non-state actors can challenge the authority within states and try to replace it. Without universal alternatives, violence will continue to be a pervasive element among international actors and influence relationships within the international environment.